That late penalty that cost your team the match might not have been the ref's fault. Well, not entirely. There is a psychological phenomenon happening inside every referee's brain during the final minutes of a game, and once you understand it, you will never watch a match the same way again. Think about the last time you watched a football match where a controversial call happened in the dying minutes. Maybe it was a soft penalty given in stoppage time. Maybe it was a blatant foul that the referee somehow missed in the 89th minute. You screamed at your television. You posted about it online. You called the referee blind, biased, or worse. But what if I told you that the referee's brain was literally working against them at that point in the game? What if the problem was not incompetence or corruption, but something baked into the way every human brain operates under prolonged stress and repeated decision-making? This is the psychology behind decision fatigue, and it explains why referees consistently make worse calls as a match goes on. Let me start by explaining what decision fatigue actually is. Every single decision you make throughout the day costs your brain a tiny amount of energy, not metaphorical energy, actual glucose and mental resources that your prefrontal cortex burns through when evaluating options and choosing between them. The first decisions you make in a day tend to be sharp, careful, well-reasoned, but as you stack more and more choices on top of each other, hour after hour, your brain starts taking shortcuts. It gets sloppy. It defaults to the easiest option or the most emotionally reactive one instead of the most accurate one. This was famously demonstrated in a study that looked at judges making parole decisions. Researchers found that prisoners who appeared before the judge early in the morning received favorable rulings about 65% of the time, but prisoners who appeared late in the day, after the judge had already made dozens of decisions, their approval rate dropped to nearly zero. The judges were not intentionally being unfair. Their brains were simply running out of fuel for careful deliberation, and the default setting became to say no, to play it safe, to avoid the harder call. Now apply that exact same principle to a football referee. A typical professional match lasts 90 minutes plus stoppage time. During that window, a referee is making constant judgments, not just the obvious ones like fouls, penalties, and offside calls. They are making hundreds of micro decisions every single minute. Was that challenge from behind or from the side? Did the attacker initiate contact or the defender? Was that arm in an unnatural position? Should I play advantage or blow the whistle now? Is this simulation or genuine contact? Every single one of those judgments draws from the same limited pool of cognitive resources. By the time the match reaches the 75th minute, the referee has been making rapid-fire decisions under enormous pressure for over an hour. The crowd is screaming, players are in their face arguing, the stakes are climbing because the scoreline is tight, and their brain, the organ responsible for all of this judgment, is running on fumes. This is where it gets fascinating. Decision fatigue does not make you obviously incompetent. You do not suddenly forget the rules. What happens is more subtle and more dangerous. Your threshold for making a call shifts. You become more likely to either overreact to contact that is minimal or completely miss contact that should be called. Your brain starts gravitating toward the path of least resistance. Sometimes that means swallowing the whistle because giving a penalty in the 90th minute feels too consequential and your exhausted brain does not want to deal with the aftermath. Other times it means the opposite, giving a call too quickly because snap judgments require less cognitive effort than carefully evaluating whether contact was sufficient. Research on referee accuracy supports exactly this pattern. Studies have found that the error rate for officiating decisions increases measurably in the second half compared to the first half, and within the second half, the final 15 minutes tend to show the highest rate of incorrect or inconsistent calls. It is not random, it is not biased toward one team or the other. It is a predictable, measurable decline in the quality of human judgment over time. And here is what makes this even worse. The moments when referees are most cognitively depleted are the exact moments when the decisions matter most. Late game situations carry disproportionate weight. A penalty in the 88th minute of a cup final can change history. A missed red card in stoppage time can alter the trajectory of an entire season. The human brain is least equipped to handle these decisions precisely when the stakes are highest. That is not a design flaw in football. It is a design flaw in us. Now, some of you are already thinking about VAR. Does not technology solve this problem? Partially, yes. Video review takes the most consequential decisions out of the hands of a fatigued referee in real time and gives a separate set of eyes a chance to evaluate them more carefully. But VAR officials are making decisions too. They are also subject to fatigue. They are also watching the same match for 90 minutes, processing information, dealing with pressure, and the on-field referee still makes the majority of calls in any given match without review. VAR catches the biggest errors, but it does not fix the underlying problem of a human brain being asked to perform at peak accuracy for longer than it is built to sustain. There is another layer to this that most people never consider. The mental load of a referee is not limited to in-game decisions. Before the match even starts, they have been preparing, reviewing player tendencies, studying team tactics, managing pre-match logistics, and dealing with the psychological weight of knowing that millions of people will judge every call they make. By kickoff, their cognitive reserves are already partially depleted. The clock starts ticking before the whistle even blows. Think about your own life for a second. Have you ever made a terrible decision late at night, sent a text you regretted, agreed to something you normally would have refused, snapped at someone over nothing after a long day at work? That is decision fatigue in your world. Now imagine that instead of a text message, the decision you are making on an exhausted brain determines whether a football club wins a championship or gets relegated. That is what referees face. This also explains something that fans argue about constantly. Why do referees seem inconsistent within the same match? A tackle in the 20th minute gets called a foul, but a nearly identical challenge in the 80th minute gets waved on. Fans interpret this as the referee losing the plot or having an agenda, but the psychological explanation is simpler and scarier. The referee's internal calibration system has drifted. Their mental benchmark for what constitutes a foul has shifted over 90 minutes of continuous judgment because their brain no longer has the energy to maintain a perfectly consistent standard. Some leagues have experimented with ways to combat this. Additional assistant referees, more structured breaks in play, and of course, technology. But the most interesting potential solution comes from understanding the psychology itself. If decision fatigue is predictable, it is also partly manageable. Some researchers have suggested that referees could benefit from structured mental rest periods, similar to how athletes manage physical fatigue through substitutions and tactical pacing. Strategic use of glucose intake during matches, brief moments of deliberate mental reset during stoppages in play. These are small interventions, but they target the root cause rather than just the symptoms. The deeper point here is one that goes way beyond football. We tend to treat referees as if they should be machines, perfectly objective, perfectly consistent, impervious to the psychological forces that affect every other human being on the planet. But they are not machines. They are people whose brains work exactly like yours, and the same cognitive limitations that cause you to make bad decisions after a long day cause them to make bad calls after a long match. So next time you see a terrible decision in the final minutes of a game, before you flood the comments with referee conspiracy theories, consider this. You might be watching a perfectly competent professional whose brain has simply been doing too much for too long. That does not make the call correct. It does not mean you cannot be frustrated, but it does mean the problem is deeper than one referee on one night. It is a fundamental mismatch between what we demand from human judgment and what human judgment can actually deliver over 90 minutes of relentless pressure. The question is not really whether referees make worse calls late in the game. The research says they do. The real question is, what are we going to do about it now that we know why? And if this got you thinking about how much psychology shapes what happens on the pitch, you'll probably want to check out my last video too. I broke down why so many of us fell into a weird slump right after the World Cup ended. Turns out that wasn't random either. Drop a comment and tell me the worst late-game call you have ever witnessed. Was it decision fatigue, or was that ref just terrible? I want to hear your stories. And if you want more videos where Stickman breaks down the hidden psychology behind sports, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This is I Know Ball, and we are just getting started.